Yeah, that's totally fine, of course. I'm flattered that you would want to record this. Okay, the audio is still okay though? Okay, nice. Well, okay, it's 4 o'clock on the dot. Do people tend to be on time? No? So we should wait.
There are
Oh, okay.
three of them who joined. So they have a class of four.
Oh,
They
okay,
just
so
wait,
they're coming, okay. Cool. Oh no, I have my what do you call this, emotional support stick? I really like teaching with a stick in my hand. First of all, because I'm very short, so if I have to point at something, it's right there. Some of the rooms I teach in too, it's like they don't. This is a normal board, I would say, like I can almost reach the top. That's a good board. Some of them, they start here. I'm like, what are you doing? So I can only use the bottom half. It's obnoxious.
move up and down where you just like push up.
Oh yeah, like in physics, 2000, don't they still have that?
I haven't been there for a while.
Oh.
They remodeled it a few years ago too.
I was in there last summer because I took the what do you call the summer teaching that workshop. It's really good. Highly recommend. In fact, I forgot to put that in the slides, but it should be in the slides. Hello.
It's only community college, not college.
I'm being specific about community college because there's different types of institutions that you could potentially go to teach at. I have absolutely no experience with CSUs, for example. And I've never, outside of getting into grad school, I've never gotten hired at a UC. So, my expertise is entirely about how to get hired in the community college system. So, yeah.
We can start it. Hello everyone, good evening. I'm extremely delighted to invite Professor Christina Manzano. She is our very own alumnus. She worked with Professor Gabriela Canalizio, and she is currently teaching both at Riverside Community College and Santana College. And she'll be giving a talk on about teaching career after our PhD.
Hello, yes, it's me. This is my name, and yes, I have a slide about this actually. Oh. This is me. I'm a UCR alumni, but I graduated in 2020, so I don't have a nice graduation photo. This does well. So yeah, I graduated in 2020. I was here in the physics and astronomy department. I was Gabby's student. And yeah, after I graduated, I pretty much right away started teaching in the community college. In fact, actually, I was already teaching when I was defending, just because of how timing worked out. So that was a really fun 2 weeks to be teaching a full load and also defending, but we made it through. And so time flies. So that comes to about 5 years of teaching experience across, I put 4 community college districts, but if you actually count every single district that I have taught even just one class at, there's a couple more. But I've gotten to know 4 districts pretty well. And so my career path is I worked as an adjunct for 2 years. Then that actually led into a full-time tenure track position. And for most people, that's, kind of where your career path would kind of stay with that tenure track position, but not everything always works out, and that's okay too. So my path is still evolving. But all of this is to say, I have gotten hired many times at community colleges, and so I know how to do that part really well. And yeah, so that's me and my background. Please feel welcome to ask me questions as I go. Yeah, please.
So regarding these adjunct positions,
Mhm.
are they positions created before officially going to tenure track?
Well, adjunct positions are part-time positions. I actually have a whole slide about
Okay,
this.
okay.
So I'm going to answer your question
Yeah,
pretty
that's
well
what
in a
I like.
second.
Two positions, so I
Yeah.
have a lot of questions.
Yeah, good. I'm glad.
Yeah, so I heard international graduate student.
Uh-huh.
I
Oh.
was in UCR.
Oh, sorry. One more time.
I heard I heard international graduate students.
Oh, am I international?
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm born and raised US.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you call that? Domestic student. Yeah. Yeah, so I have US passport, all of that. Yeah. So actually, before going on, I kind of wanted to do this as sort of informal, more of a conversation, but I did prepare slides. But I wasn't really envisioning this being a very formal talk. So I have some ideas of why I wanted to go into community college teaching, but this is going to be a way better experience if I can hear from you guys. And you can tell me what you're interested in, and then I can kind of go from there. So what brings you here? Why do you want to learn about community college teaching?
I personally see I'm applying for teaching positions
Mhm.
because I couldn't find those positions.
That's a major one. That's a major one. Okay. That's actually how I ended up in this field is, graduating in 2020, the job market then is kind of similar to what you guys are staring down, right? So, it was for me at first very much like, okay, I'll just take what I can get because it's scary out there. But it turns out to be a really nice career path that I would like to do for the rest of my life, or at least until I get sick of it. I don't know. I'm nowhere near it. So, yeah. So, but a lot of people do teach for a little while they look for postdocs. In fact, a lot of people from my cohort and the years just behind me, they ended up teaching down at the community college that I'm at for a couple years, and then they move on to other jobs.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's really common. Yeah. Anybody else?
I guess I was just curious about how different or similar it is to like teaching at like for your institution.
Oh, okay. Yeah, way different.
Okay.
So I'll talk about that if you want me to. Yeah.
Just add that population of students and their backgrounds is very different.
Yeah, quite different. Yeah. Although for UCR, you do have a lot of people transferring in from the community college. So we do have a lot of the same students. Like my job is to prepare my students to come here. So you'll see some of my students walking around campus next year. Yeah, cool. So here's what I came up with. I find it to be very meaningful work. I'm a people person, and so I like my favorite part of my job is always interfacing with people. So I love teaching students. I love teaching students from all backgrounds. It's really fun to meet students who are first generation, and so they have no clue what's going on in college. And I just I take a lot of pride in showing them the ropes and giving them guidance that I wish I had as a first year student myself. And I honestly, I wouldn't be where I am without good mentorship. So mentorship is something that I really, what do you say? I really focus on mentorship in my teaching. That phrase will come back later. So, yeah. So students with all backgrounds, you have like returning students who, maybe didn't graduate high school and they're maybe a little bit older and they're starting college. You have students with kids and just all kinds of people, right? If you teach at a community college, this might be a plus or a minus for you depending on what you're into, but you will be focusing just on teaching. There's no research component to teaching at a community college. If you get into a CSU, there is a research component, but I don't do that part, so I can't speak to that. Should you end up in a tenure track position, that's some very nice job security. And also the unions are really really fantastic for the entire community college system. Yeah, and I like being in the classroom with my students. I feel like I have an actual impact on their lives. It's compared to teaching in like a larger university setting, for example, I know that some of these classes are enormous, like hundreds of students. My class caps are somewhere around, it depends, but at the very most 40 students per class. So I know everyone's names and I have time to talk to everyone. It's very nice to be able to get to know people on a personal level. And also I really like the work environment. Of course, this depends where you end up working. It kind of comes down to like, do you get along with your coworkers and stuff? But I found that I really like all of the districts that I've worked at so far. So yeah.
Speaking of that, this is focused on teaching, doing research. So how many units do you have to teach in the same, in one single quarter or semester to be considered as a full-time job?
Full-time job, actually. So glad you asked. Oh, wait, it's really this one. This is the big slide.
Okay.
So actually, I'll just do the last slide really quick and then we'll move on to your question. Really good question. So I kind of put this up here. There's just a bunch of stats about how big the community college system is, right? Across California, there are 73 districts serving a total of almost 2 million students per year. It's huge. And so there are a lot of resources in the community colleges. And so the way it works is of these 70, so the community college system is broken into 73 districts. And then each district might have multiple campuses, right? So for example, I work at the Riverside Community College District and the Santa Ana Community College District, but I put San Jacinto because that's another kind of closer one. So RCCD has 3 campuses. There's Riverside City, Moreno Valley, and Norco. And I bring this up because some of you might start looking for adjunct positions. And to your question, how many classes do you teach that would be the equivalent of a full-time position? Well, that all kind of depends, right? So there's kind of 2 broad categories of teaching positions that you can have as a community college professor. I'll start with adjunct because that's where I started. So adjunct is another way of saying a part-time professor. And so the part-time professor has a maximum amount that they can teach. For most places, it depends on the class, but for most places, this works out to be 3 classes. You're gonna mostly be teaching lower division. There are some colleges that have higher division classes and even some bachelor's degrees, but the bachelor's degrees offered at community colleges are often very, very niche because they can't compete with the UCs and the CSUs. But anyway, I'm getting off track. So up to 3 classes, right, at a single district. So at Riverside City College, I teach basically what is equivalent to 3 classes. It's complicated, but you guys don't care about the details. And so that's the most I'm able to teach within that district. And if you're an adjunct, you're pretty much only expected to teach those classes. They don't really expect you to do any committee work or service to the institution type of things. Just teach. This is kind of the lowest stakes job that you can get, really. You're hired on a semester to semester basis. And so, you can sign up to teach a class. If you didn't have a good time teaching that class, you aren't on the hook to do it again next semester. So yeah, you can make a decision course by course, semester by semester. It's not a long-term thing, although it can be. So I've known people who have taught part-time at certain districts for years and years and years. And actually, the longer you teach at some districts, you get something called rehire rights, where if a course exists and you've been teaching there for a certain amount of time, they have to offer you a chance to take that course. And then whether you do is up to you. Yeah. Some districts pay medical benefits. I know that Riverside, RCCD pays full benefits as long as you teach at least 2 classes. So that's actually quite a good deal. That's a new win that they got.
Is that
recently.
RCCD or just RCC?
Riverside, the whole district, so Moreno Valley, Norco, and RCC. Yeah. So they pay full benefits to their adjuncts, which is really nice. Lots of places will pay like half of your benefits and then you pay the rest. That's kind of common. Yeah.
So my question about this adjunct or part-time is that since we are international,
Mhm.
and in order to keep our status as an OPT and blah, blah, we have to have a full-time job with the title of full-time, or I think with the legally it should be 40 hours in a week. So this is considered a full-time job. So this part-time, is that, I mean, the title that this community college gives them, or it can be 40 hours in a week?
So good question. I'm not sure.
I think I can answer it.
Yeah.
OPT full-time is 20 hours per week, so 50% or above is full-time.
Oh, really?
Even though this is not part-time,
Wow.
equally 20 hours, 50% is full-time.
Okay, that's great.
Marie. Thanks for stepping in on that one, because I know that there are a lot of international people who need to work for their visas,
Yeah.
who are adjuncts, and you do meet that requirement. So there's something called like full-time equivalent is a unit of measurement for how many classes you're teaching essentially. So 3 classes, so rule of thumb is 1 class is 0.2 full-time equivalent. So a full-time is 5 classes. And so a part-time, if you teach a full load as a part-time person, you're easily above the 50% because that's 0.6 full-time equivalent.
And these classes, are they different topics, subjects, or can be one subject in multiple classes?
Oh, great question. So if you're applying to teach, what they want to see is that you have a master's or higher in the subject that you will be teaching. So I'm assuming we have a room of physics and astronomy folks. Any other degrees? Oh, okay, nice. So then you would also be able to teach engineering. Honestly, oh, okay, nice. Yeah, so you could probably also, you would have to read the job description carefully, but they list the degrees that they accept in the job description, and if you have that degree, you're set. But yeah, so if you have that degree to teach in that department, then they'll assign classes accordingly. You also do have quite a bit of control over what you teach. Usually when you're first starting out, say you're getting your first adjunct position, they might just offer you like, hey, we have a conceptual physics class. Do you want to teach that one? But as you become more established in the department, they'll actually start consulting you when they make the schedule. And, if you have somebody who's very conscientious of your needs, they might ask like, what class do you want to teach and when can you teach it? And then they'll make the schedule according to what you say. So yeah, that's been my experience. So I get to make my own schedule. It's nice. Yeah.
What does it mean by 1 class? For example, does that mean that 1 class is like 3 lectures per week?
Typically it will be 2 lectures per week. So I'll take my like intro to astronomy class, for example. Typically 1 class will be up to 35 students, plus or minus 5, right? Up to 35 students, hour-and-a-half lecture, 2 times a week, usually. That's 1 class. A lab section also counts as the equivalent of 1 lecture, usually. So.
Oh, so if that class has a lab, so it will consider as another okay.
Yes. So I've taught kind of both situations. One where the class is combined with the lab. And in that case, that class, the lecture and lab combo is worth 0.4 full-time equivalent. And I've also taught where they're separate classes, and then obviously those are just two classes.
And in California, these community colleges are based quarter-based or semester-based?
I have not run into one that's quarter-based. I've only seen semester.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't say across the board that they're all semester, but I've not seen or heard of one that does
There's like
semester.
less than like five-ish.
Oh, wow.
I recently saw somewhere that there's like a couple of them that exist around quarters, but
Mhm.
I don't think.
Yeah.
There are.
Yeah, I've like heard somewhere that they are, but I haven't found them. So, yeah, almost always semesters. And it's nice too, because the semesters, so a semester is spring and fall. Then there are intersessions. So winter and summer are considered intersessions. They're like accelerated terms. And moving into the full-time part, so full-time, you would be teaching 5 classes. It is a year contract, actually more of a 10-month contract. And I say that because the contract is for you to teach 5 classes in the fall, 5 classes in the spring. And then winter and summer are just up to you. They're optional. And extra money. So that part's nice. Oh yeah, do you guys have any more questions about the part?
So this gap that you said winter and summer, it is long months each other?
Depends, each school has its own calendar. Some schools actually don't have a winter, they just have a summer. So each school has a different calendar and you just have to look that up, but it's common for it to be like spring and fall semester with winter and summer intersession.
And see this gap, there can be courses?
Yeah, the gap is usually it's usually 2 months from the end of, say, fall to the beginning of spring. Usually there's 2 months, but the intersession itself is usually about 6 weeks. So you have like kind of a week on either end. That's usually how it goes. And so also you get paid the same as you would if you taught that class in the fall, for example. So you take all that money that you would have made from that class, compress it into 6 weeks. So it's kind of hard to say no to a intersession class. I went like 4 years straight just teaching winter and summer every time because it's such a nice deal. I'm also completely open to talking about how much money I make. It's not rude to ask me. That's why you're here, right? How much do I make? Okay, so it depends, they pay different depending on the district. Blah, 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 blah. At the end of the day, it is roughly $1,000 per class per month is what you'll make. So what a lot of people do with adjuncts is you'll teach more than one. That's why I teach at more than one college. So very easily, if you teach a full-time load at one college, you make $3K a month during the semester. And then, so a lot of people will work at multiple places. Full-time, on the other hand, you are salaried. So you're on a 10-month contract and you can look up the pay schedule. I can break down a pay schedule if you want. I feel like that's a little technical, but also it's hard to understand. So I'm happy to do that for you guys if you care, maybe at the end. But a 10-month contract, you're paid, say, I don't know, say they start you at 120 a year. Then, but you're on a 10-month contract. So what they actually do is they say you're paid for what you teach in in fall and spring. That's your 120. And they break it into 12 months. So each month you get 10K. And then if you want to teach extra in the fall or in the winter intersession, then that's extra money on top of your salary. Does that make sense?
So is the 120 a number you randomly came up with, or is
No, that's like kind of, if you leave here with your PhD and you land a full-time job, that's kind of ballpark what you might make. At Santa Ana, I told you I'll tell you what I make. At Santa Ana, they started me at 114 this year. That's so that's in the PhD column with a couple of years of experience behind me, but some districts pay more, some pay less.
For the adjunct position. Is it ever hard to get like the full 3 classes, or is it sometimes you get like one to give you?
In my experience, it's been easy to get the full 3 classes. In my experience, people are kind of looking for adjuncts. These are quite easy to get. If you are qualified to teach, especially if you have some teaching experience, you'll have no problem finding an adjunct position.
Do they have any, so people who are hiring, do they have any preference for nationality? Like if you're a US citizen, do you get like, more preference?
That would be very illegal for there to be a preference there. Yeah, if you have the like qualifications to work in the US, that's what they care about. Like, do you have all of your necessary documentation that you can work in the US?
But I'm assuming if they hire someone, an international PhD graduate, I think they'll also have to like take the burden of paying like H1B and other.
That all falls on HR to deal with. And so from my perspective as a faculty member, I have never noticed an issue with that. That's also my domestic student privilege talking, but like from talking with my colleagues about who to hire, it's never seemed to be an issue.
So based on my experience, you were talking about.
I was just gonna guess, I mean, if you come to a place like UCR sponsors your H1, your green card and all that. I'm gonna guess that at least as an adjunct, it's up to you. You will probably have to pay all the lawyer fees and everything else. I don't know about full time, maybe they're looking for that, but as an adjunct, I would guess that they would.
I did not come prepared for questions about like international people working. So I can actually go look this up and send a follow-up too. So I'll ask around.
Yeah, based on, yeah.
I
Yeah,
guess,
so-
I don't know, this is, I don't even know, but you have like international people working as full time?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so then that kind of.
I think I can answer this. I think one of your part-time colleagues, Pat Lim, he's a former student here.
Yes.
And he's still applying for a green card and he's teaching there. So that's the name you can give to people. He's going through that process.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure if I should call out Pat, like individually. So, but yes, there is an international, like UCR student, like working alongside me at RCC, and his international status has never come up as an issue in our department. And he gets paid just fine, from what I understand. Sometimes I'll send a message like, hey, what happened with our pay stubs? Like, what is this thing on our pay stub? And so he'll ask me. If you guys end up working with me, you can message me about that.
So
I know how to
think
communicate stuff.
this is the process. So in the application pages, I see that they say that you don't sponsor visa. But what I do is that I say that I don't need visa. I will come with my own OPT. So for my OPT, I don't want anyone to sponsor me. And for first year, you can use your own OPT, but for second year, I think you need to extend it. And for extension, you need a sponsor. But in my case, I think that by that time, my green card will be fine, or fine, I don't say much fine. And I will use my green card to continue working. But I don't know how it is case.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask about this and I'll send a follow-up. Yeah. Good. Any other questions? Okay, so full-time. Everybody wants a full-time. It's a little bit nicer. So you'll end up teaching 4 or 5 classes, typically. And so, in addition to your teaching responsibilities, they want to see you get involved with committees, get involved with, this service work is very broad. It means service to the institution. Basically, like faculty still take part in doing the things that make the institution run. So that can mean a lot of things. And once you cross that bridge, once you get a full-time position, your colleagues will kind of let you know what things need to be filled and what your options are. And so you can have a temporary one. That's what I'm working at Santa Ana right now. I'm a temporary full-time. And so it's a 1-year contract with no promise that you can renew, although always the hope is that they can turn it into a full-time tenure track. Usually when one of these temporary positions opens up, it's because they actually really need a full-time person, and for whatever reason, they weren't able to open the full tenure track call. Often it means a full-time tenure track position is on the way to being opened. So, and that's just kind of not what ended up happening at Santa Ana, which shucks, but it's okay. Yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead.
So those that are in tenure track or they are more senior in the department and they are full-time, do they have to still teach 4 or 5 classes?
Yes, so in your contract, it will say you have to teach, you have a full-time equivalent, right? So you have to do enough to say that I am teaching 1.0 full-time equivalent, right? But that can come with something called release time. So say you take on some major responsibilities, like you become department chair. That comes with extra responsibilities that are necessary for your job, but it's not teaching. You can get release time that's maybe equivalent to 1 or 2 classes, depending on how big the responsibility is. So, for example, at RCC, our planetarium director gets release time to run the planetarium. So that means that's 1 less class that he's supposed to teach. So that's why I say like 4 to 5 classes. If you're a chair, you might even only be teaching 3 classes.
Then what's the usual workload for someone who either just 3 classes or what is the usual work week?
That's completely up to you, right? Teaching is nice because you can put as much effort in as you want, and you get back what you put in, right? So, but these 3 classes, I would say 25 hours a week, if you're really putting in the effort to do some really nice course prep, you're showing up and actually teaching your classes, and then you're putting in the time outside of, that's part of the 25 hours, right? You get sick days and stuff, but yeah, so what I mean is the time you spend in the classroom obviously counts to that 25 hours, but it also, you're also expected to do a little bit of prep and a little bit of grading outside of that. And it kind of works out to be, I think usually it'll say in your contract and, plus or minus a few hours here and there. It's usually like if you spend 3 hours per class a week in class, the assumption is that for every hour in class, you spend like an hour and a half on prep and grading. So.
Another really silly question. Do you have an office that you want to add?
Depends completely. Adjuncts often have a shared office space. You don't have your own office unless, I don't know, they really like you or something. At RCC, they gave me like a little corner of the lab room. If you're full-time, they will give you an office and you're required to hold office hours. Yeah.
That was a good question.
Yeah, it depends. Some district or some campuses have dedicated space for their adjuncts to hold office hours and hang out and put their stuff down, and some don't. So, that part. Yeah. Yeah. So those are kind of the major types of jobs you could have, full-time and part-time, really. The tenure track process is typically 4 years. And will upon getting tenure, you guys know what tenure is. So yeah. Upon getting tenure, you're set for life, I guess. I don't know. So yeah. And then if you're full-time, the district will pay your benefits, which is very nice. Yes. What else do you guys want to know?
How does this vary for other students?
I have not worked in any other states or looked for jobs in other states. Part of that though is because the pay and like benefits that you get in California is really, really nice. Like all of this is kind of, a lot of things can vary depending on what district you get hired at, like for example, your pay and like certain details in your contract. But in California, faculty are represented by like one big blanket union, which is really nice. And each time you teach a class, either as an adjunct or as a full-time professor, every time you teach a class in California, you pay into a pension fund. So it's not very much in my interest to look for places in other states. Like California is, from what I understand, one of the best states to be a community college teacher. So
Do you think that the state have this chance to find a position in California?
oh yeah, they're everywhere. Do you guys want to hear more about how to get a job?
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's why you're here, right? Okay. Well, right now, you're probably who's actually looking for a job right now? A few, yes, okay. Talk to me after. No, so okay, if you're not actively looking for a job, but you want to build up your skills to have a nice resume when you leave, ask to TA. Try to TA different classes that really builds out like it really shows that you have a range, and also it helps you kind of build up your teaching what do you call, not portfolio, but like your teaching materials, right? So that when you go, say you TA a bunch of 2A classes here, and then you go over to RCC, they also have the same class numbering system. So if you go over there and you teach 2A, you're not starting from scratch. That part's nice. I reused a lot of things that I TA'd with here. And I know that sometimes when you TA here, you like, sometimes the professor will be just like, here's a worksheet, go over the answers with the students, and you don't get a lot of freedom. But if you do get a lot of freedom, try different things in your classroom, right? Next slide will say more about how to learn what different things you can try. And also, I don't know how much people care about seeing your teaching evals, but what I did was I kept my teaching evals and I put little testimonials for my students in my CV. And I don't know if that's the thing that got me a job or anything, but it made me feel good to put it on my CV. So I encourage you to do that.
In CV, you said.
What's that?
You put that evaluation in the CV?
Yeah, there was just a little blip at the end saying like, oh, student testimonials. So I don't know. I don't know if like, I don't know that that's necessarily the main thing that you should do, but like I said, it just made me feel good to do it, and it made me feel more confident as I was applying, like, oh, my students love me. And that's honestly, if you keep a very student-centered mindset while you're applying, that will take you far, because these jobs, they're looking for people who care first and foremost about students. Yeah.
Can I add one thing?
Oh yeah.
It is possible, if you guys are really interested in getting teaching experience, it's possible to occasionally teach a class, once you advance to candidacy, to teach a summer class. So you can ask your PIs about it, every once in, I mean, maybe not every year, but sometimes they do have opportunities for grad students. And I think that probably looks really good on your CV, yes.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah, so yeah, what they really want to see is if you are the instructor of record of your class. So if you're a TA, you're not the instructor of record. But if you are the instructor of record, that helps a lot. So I'm really glad you brought that up.
Also, Ren taught in extension, one in Somerset, I don't know if you remember that.
I do, yeah.
So extension center is another possibility.
Yeah, so that actually goes up here, first thing you should try, right? Yeah. There are also some really nice workshops here. I actually, so I went to Teaching Careers Week in my final year here, and it was so helpful to help me break into community college teaching. This year it is May 6th through 8th. They offer all of these workshops, panels and stuff. And honestly, the way that I heard about or the direct line that I got to my first adjunct job was going to one of these panels, and a professor from in biology at RCC was like, no, was just talking about teaching at RCC and how you can apply and everything. And so I had DM'd her asking if they were looking for anybody to teach physics and astronomy, and she said, email James Chaney, and then that was how I got my job. So it's very helpful.
I'm gonna bring my phone to take a picture.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna send these around too.
Oh, you would send?
Yeah, I'll send this. Don't go. Also,
Oh, no, this is just, yeah.
also wait, but these are links. Oh, okay, let's see if it'll open. Oh, it opened down here. Okay, wait. Huh. Okay, there's these. Wait, what was I clicking on? Teaching Careers Week. Cool. Yeah, lots of very good information, more stuff like this, really. There's also, let's make everyone dizzy. These workshops are really great. So some have already passed and some are coming up in the spring. They're just like teaching skills. So when I said, you know, try new things in the classroom, this is how you learn new things to teach in the classroom. With AI coming in, like it's a big topic in community colleges, or I guess everywhere, right? How to, you know, how to not be scared of AI, how to prevent cheating, but also how to, you know, use it constructively. That's something that I'm quite interested in. Here's one that I would have done if it was offered when I was looking. There's UCI offers an internship. It's a summer internship for people who are looking to go into teaching. All of this text is really tiny, but I linked from it here. Okay, key takeaways. Interns will receive a $7,500 fellowship for the summer and engage in specialized training focused on course design, inclusive teaching, and career development. So you could get paid to learn how to teach. And of course, I'm sure they would probably also have some about making your application materials, but I can go into that too. Let's see. There's a certificate, like a teaching certificate, that's offered, I think through Grad Division. They offer a bunch of different certificates. The teaching certificate is really cool. It's actually, of the certificates, it's the only one that I didn't attempt to get, but I hear good things about it. So that's another thing that will teach you a lot of teaching skills. I don't know if they're doing Making Excellence Inclusive anymore, but I took that one when I was here, and it was really nice because it's like, it teaches you how to write things like a diversity statement and how to talk about diversity. So if there's something similar to that, I highly recommend taking it. I know you know a lot about diversity too, so you probably know more about what resources there are.
Yes, they were doing that this year. They're doing it next year.
I mean, I know it's ongoing.
Yeah.
But
Oh.
yeah.
Oh, okay. When I went to the website, the last thing I saw was something about applications for 2023. So maybe they call it something different now, but it's if there's some type of diversity like certificate that you can do, I highly recommend it, because being able to talk about diversity is a very important thing for getting these jobs. If you are in if you get an interview, I mean, I don't mean to say if, when you get an interview, you will be asked diversity questions. And there are some things that the panel is looking for that you say about diversity. And like, basically, if you take this class, then you're totally prepared for that, so.
If we ask you that, what's the most important thing regarding that, during an interview, will you give us any advice like this?
Oh, do you guys want interview advice? I got you.
It's just that part.
Oh, just for diversity?
Yeah.
Let's see. I think to give just like a very, very brief, quick, like if I could give one piece of advice about diversity in the interview process, a lot of times people who have not learned a lot about diversity and what they mean when they're asking about diversity, you might think automatically like, oh, they mean what about me is diverse, right? Like, and so I can say, oh, I'm a non-white woman, and now therefore I'm not diverse, and that's not what they're asking. What they're asking is, what type of work have you done to facilitate diversity in your workplace? And so, yeah, that's kind of the number one thing that I would say about that.
Just want to add, the most common way that this question I've seen phrased is, how will you increase the diversity of this campus, which seems like it's asking the question about you as a person. But
Yes.
It's really that.
Yeah, and it's a red flag to the hiring committee if you say, oh, I will bring gender diversity by being a woman to the campus, and it's like, that's not what they're asking at all.
It's more than a red flag, and there's a California law that prohibits taking that into consideration.
Yes.
So as a search committee, we are instructed to like cover our ears and go la 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 if anybody says, you know, I'm diverse and this and this or that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know some people who have really struggled to get jobs. Like, I know they're applying around and they're really, really struggling to get jobs. And we talk about, oh, hey, how did your interview go? And they will sometimes they'll say things like, oh, you know, I really hate the diversity questions because then I have to talk about my identity. And I'm just like, oh, they're not asking about you. Your identity is not important for that. Like, it's what work do you do, not who are you? Because yeah, like Gabby said, it's actually illegal for them to factor that in.
What kind of qualifications are you looking for in that regard? Do you have to have done anything specific that can be like written down in the CV, or?
That part
Like-
is, so showing that you do a bunch of like diversity trainings is nice, but really the way that you can showcase this is by getting the interview questions. Like just knowing how to talk about it in the interview, that's really where they're looking for it. Also there's, I'll show you when I get to application materials. Because what they'll ask you for is a cover letter, your CV, and a diversity statement often. So you get a chance to say a page and a half about diversity. So even if you don't have, say, the Making Excellence Inclusive workshop on your CV, you can show that you know what you're talking about. And I left space on here for more, but I couldn't find more in time before this.
Yes, and especially like related to astronomy, it's not related to this year, but there's the PDP, the Professional Development Program, which is organized by Institute of Scientists and Engineers. They usually come here and give like a presentation, and it's especially nice because like I did the PDP last year, and I specifically worked with community college students from the Bay Area. Like we used like observatory and then like designed our own, like basically kind of similar to what they did, but it's like specifically related to astronomy. You actually get to work with the community college students. They have like this particular thing I did. We actually had people come in from the community colleges. So I got to like talk to professors working at community colleges, and it's really nice to like get a sense of how things work. So yeah, for astronomy, I recommend.
yeah, do that, especially because it gets you working with the community college.
Yeah.
Like people associated with community colleges, that's really good, yeah.
I work with, like in my lab, I work with a couple of RCC students through the NACAR youth program. And then also there's another program like RISE, it's also for community college research. You have to verify, like, UCR students, and so they undergraduate research.
Oh, yes, so obviously that should go in your CV, but in your diversity statement, you could say that you are involved with these projects. And so that shows that you have a commitment to mentorship. And then, say things about why mentorship is important for diversity and all that. Yes, so that you already have that your diversity statement.
There's also an TA certificate that's meant to be, it's not required to do it before the teaching certificate, the university teaching certificate, but I think it's eventually supposed to be like a stepping stone certificate. So one is how to TA effectively, and then there's the other one of like how do you lead your own course.
Ooh, yeah, see, I knew I could count on you guys to be more up to date on these. I started this slide a couple of years ago, actually, because I was like, oh, before I forget, I'm gonna write down all the stuff I did at UCR, but of course they have new things, so. Cool, thank you for your help on building out this slide. Does anybody know any others? I'm sure there are, but yeah. Great. How do you find a position? So before you can apply, you must find them. There's a job fair every January. It's hosted at the Westin near LAX. I went last year and it was great. It's a little bit more geared towards full-time jobs. So it's cool. You register, you get your badge, and it has a little QR code on it, and then there's booths with many different, usually it's HR from different districts. Sometimes it's like deans from various departments will be there as well. And you kind of just go through and you can scan. They have a list of full-time positions they're hiring for, and if you see your discipline, you can scan, and then it'll like automatically send in your CV, which is nice. You would still have to officially apply, but it shows them that you were also at this. And it gives you a chance to kind of talk and ask questions about the district, which is nice. And that's not something you get to do if you're just searching. But if you search online, these are kind of the main websites that I use to look around for jobs. And so it's kind of nice. I have it set for astronomy jobs. Wait, do I? Yes, physics and astronomy. And so you can see all of these different jobs posted, and yeah. So there's sort of 3 websites that I would kind of cycle through when I was looking. I like this one because it shows you how much they make, or how much you might make typically. Yeah.
Have you ever done an online job?
Oh, like teaching online?
Other than the pandemic?
Oh, yeah, actually, so I got certified to teach online. And so many of the adjunct positions I have are actually just online teaching. I shouldn't say just, you put in the same amount of work. It's just, it looks different. So I don't have any fully remote jobs, but what often happens, especially it's harder to find these with physics, but there are tons of online astronomy classes that you could conceivably teach, and geology as well. And so what you could do is get an adjunct position, and if they need online, each district has a different rule about like what kind of certification you need, but there's kind of one universal certification. It's called like the you use in your email, @1. And if you are @1 certified, then you're pretty much able to teach online at any district. So yeah, you get hired like normal, and then if they have any online classes, you can ask for them. And some of my teaching positions have been completely online. Yeah. It's nice because you don't have to commute. They call adjuncts freeway flyers. I'm sure you can imagine why. So, yeah. Some districts do not advertise on these websites because it costs money to put up an ad. So it's tedious, but you can go directly to each district website and look up, look for their jobs page, and you'll see the job posting there, and you can apply directly through the district website. For example, RCC does not advertise, but RCC is one of the higher paying districts in the area. So yeah, so they don't need to, because it's like all word of mouth. And then cold calling the department, it's scary, but it works. So find the department chair on the website, send them an email with your resume and tell them that you're interested in teaching. And sometimes you hear back. Sometimes they're just like, apply through the website. But sometimes that's the only way that they're going to know about you. So,
But like talking in person, doesn't work. Is it rude? Is it unprofessional? You know?
it's just kind of hard to track people down. Is the thing, and it's hard to know if it's a good time. So I think emailing, especially emailing or having a friend kind of vouch for you. So I'll be that friend for you. If you want to go to one of the departments that I teach at, I'll put in a word for you. Yeah.
So in the attachments, what should I include? Only CV or?
Yeah, what I did when I cold called James Chaney at RCC, I just I put down like, how did I get his email? I'm interested in teaching, and I attached my CV. And then in my email body, I also said what my qualifications are, because this is the number one thing people want to know is, do you have the minimum qualification to teach? And all they want to know is, do you have a master's or higher in that discipline? Yeah.
Now that you have taught for 5 years, are you still following these ads, or is it for like?
I honestly just looked up the ads because you guys invited me to come. So, but I had them all saved from when I was looking, and yeah. But yeah, I don't really keep up with them now because I'm comfortable where I'm at, but yeah. And also, you know, we're always talking in our circles. Oh, who's hiring? What, who got hired? And all that, you know.
Do you have a slides about CV?
Oh,
Statement?
do I? Yes. It's actually kind of a scary slide, but I'll take you through it. Okay, so in general, your application materials will look something like this. Resume and CV, obviously, you guys know what that is, but I will tell you how to tune yours for teaching. You'll need a cover letter. Have you guys written any cover letters before? Yeah, some. I have a thing about a cover letter. They'll want to see your teaching philosophy. And then sometimes a teaching philosophy and a diversity statement are separate things. You don't always need to do a diversity statement. But usually you will need a teaching philosophy, which can kind of also be a diversity statement. And I'll just say briefly about the teaching philosophy. You know, keep it short, 1 to 2 pages. They want to see practical examples, and they want to see you talk about like student-centered learning and yeah, just basically like how do you pay attention to your students and make sure that they're learning, and like give concrete examples of like what you do in the classroom. And they also want you to talk about inclusivity, diversity in your teaching philosophy. So if they don't explicitly ask you for a diversity statement, this is another place where you can demonstrate your knowledge there. Specifically in your resume, I recommend organizing it like this. First, they want to see your education. Then they want to see your relevant employment history, and then everything else can go after. At this point in your career, you probably don't have too much institutional service, but as you work, you can build that up and add that. Like, really only recently did I add institutional service to my resume. Okay, I say that recently, like 3 years ago, but once I had institutional service, I put it on there. There's things like academic senate and, you know, all these things that you can do to, that's in addition to teaching. Any workshops or trainings or anything that you gave. This includes talks and conferences. And specialized skills, so like how long have you been using Canvas is really what they want to see. You guys all probably know how to code, that's a plus. I don't know how much you'll use it, it's kind of up to you. Actually, we're at RCC, we're giving, my coworker is putting on a little mini conference on a Saturday next month about data tools in the classroom, in the physics classroom. So if you're interested, come through. It's $10 though, and we don't provide lunch. I'm really selling it, I'm sorry. But I expect to learn a lot. Oh yeah, relevant software skills, meaning like, what other types of software do you use in addition to Canvas in the classroom? So like, if you do a lot of labs and you use Capstone a lot, that can go on there. Obviously coding languages, and of course, if you speak more than one language, please tell them. Yeah. Oh, a few of these subpoints, right? When you put your education background on, like this is the degrees that you earned in order, take those dates off. I had dates on mine and didn't realize that, you know, that could be used to figure out my age and that therefore, you know, bring up some biases in the hiring committee. And so I may or may not get hired. They won't say it out loud. If they say, oh, you know, we're looking for someone a little older. So this is for the initial screening. Just don't give them anything that, you know, they could look at and think, oh, let's throw this out for whatever reason, whether it's conscious or not. Right? So it's a good idea to take those dates off. I got that advice from hiring committees who were giving advice to people applying there. So, yeah. The rest I think are kind of just like normal CV advice. The Career Center here is really good at helping you edit your CV. So, do you guys have any other like CV questions? I don't want to talk too long about stuff you already know.
Should we say anything about our research to show that we also do research, we also help the students to prepare for research?
If you do research that involves students, particularly community college students, like if you mentor students, then yes, definitely. But they really don't look at research at all. The most I mention my research is to say I did my PhD and it involved black holes, and then I linked to my dissertation, and then I keep it moving because they're really not looking at research. And I think that's one of the big pitfalls that people coming from this environment and going into community college, it's kind of hard to imagine a learning environment where people aren't really centered on research, but it's true. They like, I actually don't know what all of my colleagues did for their research because we just don't talk about it really. So
that's so sometimes there is like, wow, like if you're a leader of some sort of campus organization, it's good for your CV and stuff, but it doesn't actually.
I think so when I was first coming out of UCR, I had another instead of institutional service, what I had here was leadership, and I put things like being involved with power and stuff like that. I put that under that, and that's kind of like what you do. That's kind of in the same direction as institutional service. But then as you get more in, as you get farther along in your career as a community college professor, you'll have more specific things to say about institutional service. Yeah. So yeah, definitely put that on. But yeah, I think your institutional service thing can start as, clubs and student leadership and stuff like that. Ooh, this is going long. I thought I was only gonna talk for like a second. Questions about CVs? So only a few of us have written cover letters. Thanks for coming. So you will be asked to write a cover letter. Please don't write a single like the same cover letter and then just change the name of the school. Every time, like write a new cover letter every time. And so even though you're already showing this in your CV, say in your cover letter how you meet the minimum qualifications. So like my cover letter always starts off with, I graduated with my PhD in physics and astronomy from the University of California at Riverside. My research involved black holes, linked to my dissertation, and then never mention research again. They just simply don't care. But also show that you have looked up the college. And so if it's, say, an HSI, Hispanic Serving Institution, say that you know that, and maybe say a little bit about how this is an HSI. So you have experience with that. Another place to mention DEI. So, yeah. Oh, hi, Jared. I just saw you on the Zoom. In case you haven't written a cover letter before, the basic structure is briefly introduce yourself and show how you meet the minimum qualifications. I guess these two go there. One or two sentences about your teaching philosophy and concrete descriptions of other relevant activities. One thing that I like to throw into a cover letter is if I notice that the school has a certain goal, I like to say an idea of like something I would like to do outside of the classroom to facilitate that goal. So I don't know, one fallback that I have that kind of works broadly is, and you can take this too, unless we're competing for a job sometime. Is I like to say, oh, I'm really dedicated to mentorship. And so I want to host what do you call? I'd like to host workshops during the intersessions to teach students how to write resumes and maybe do a little coding boot camp if they're interested in getting into research, something like that, right? If that's something that the school seems interested in, I'll say that.
How much freedom do you have to do stuff like that, those workshops, stuff like that?
Oh, tons. Yeah, and you might want to apply for some funding to do that. And that's actually something that I have little experience with, but I know people who have gotten a grant here and there to say, oh, I'm going to put on this workshop and see how it goes. And like maybe even pay students to attend. So that's definitely something that is encouraged. Maybe a little harder to pull off in this current climate, but it happens. And definitely no one's going to stop you if you do it for free. So I'm not encouraging you to work for free, but it does look nice if you say that you could. Yeah. But the interview is kind of the big one, right? Okay, so the overall process goes, you submit your application, it has your cover letter, your CV, all of that. And then it goes through a screening process. And that's where they go through and they say, oh, this person doesn't meet the minimum qualifications. Oh, maybe we're gonna put people in stacks. Like this person's not even qualified to do the job. That's that stack. These people look good and then these people look great, right? And so if you are in the stack that looks great, you may get a first round interview. And so you always want to know the numbers, right? From asking around about different hiring committees that have gone on around me. I've never personally been on a hiring committee, but my coworkers will gossip with me about it. as much as they're legally allowed to say, right? You're actually not supposed to say much. But you can say things like how many people applied and how many people are getting an interview. That's fine. So typically you get around like 60 to 100 applications. Something like, I don't know, 15 to 20 of those are going to go in the not qualified stack, right? I hear that if you have taught some, like say you've adjuncted for a few years and you have a PhD in your discipline that you want to teach, you're probably going to go in a good stack. So it's likely, like, especially after teaching for a couple of years, it's likely that you'll get an interview. When I first left here, I applied for a few, like a handful of full-time positions, maybe 5. I got 1 interview, and that's having never taught a class as an instructor of record. And I only got to the first interview. Because, and looking back, I get why I didn't get a second interview, but I'll give you tips on that. Now, if I apply, I don't want to sound cocky or anything, but so far, it like after having done this for a while, like after having adjuncted for 2 years, since then, every time I've applied for a full-time position, I've gotten it. I've only applied twice, but I've gotten both. So it really is like, if you've been doing this for a little bit and you have a degree and a bunch of stuff to show for the time you've spent teaching, then you're gonna get the interviews. So first round, about 45 to 60 minutes, give or take. Try not to take up the whole 60 minutes. The time will fly by. So try and move it along. Give concise answers. You'll have a hiring committee consisting of discipline relevant faculty. So for my interview for Mount SAC, this was for a tenure track position. There were like 15 people in the room, and most of them were people in my discipline. And yeah, so they'll start with standardized questions, maybe like 7, 8 questions. They ask all of the applicants the same thing. They cannot ask you any follow-up questions, and they can't really, they're not supposed to react to what you say. So even if you know people in the room, and you see them just straight face, just writing things down, don't let it get under your skin. They're not supposed to react. They're not supposed to let you know you're doing a good or a bad job, right? Usually you'll have to do a 10-minute or so teaching demonstration. One pitfall, oh, actually, I won't say that yet. 10-minute teaching demonstration. Usually they don't tell you what the topic is going to be until like 24 hours beforehand. It's not meant to be a gotcha. The assumption is that you've taught these classes before, and you kind of just go into your materials and you pull up a lecture that you've already done. So this is another reason why, like, getting through the first round of interviews is a lot easier if you've been teaching already. So typically it goes like adjunct for a little while, then a full-time for most people, unless you're like, I know some people that got it right out the gate, so, you know. Sometimes they'll do like a role-playing activity, like in my interview at Mount SAC, they had one of the committee members come up and pretend to be a student coming into my office hours. And so that was fun.
For this first round interview, in person, Zoom, or on phone?
I have done in person and Zoom. Yeah. I don't know that I've done a phone interview.
I did one for a community college.
How was that?
It was not a formal interview though. I'm just assuming it was an interview because it was, I knew the person, they just had to ask me their questions and then.
Oh,
But it was
okay.
for an adjunct, it wasn't for a full time.
Yeah, if we're counting just for like an adjunct, then yeah, this is how like I've done a phone. Yes. Well, sometimes adjuncts for an adjunct position, you'll do this too. But then there's just one interview for an adjunct position. For a full-time position, if it's a tenure track position, you'll have 2 rounds at least. But yeah, sometimes you'll have like a formal interview. Sometimes for an adjunct position, it really is just like you email the CV and they'll be like, do you want to teach this class? oh, okay, like fill out this thing and HR will take care of the rest. Like I've had that spectrum. No interview. Like that has happened to me before. And it turned out to be a great place to work, so.
Do they give you a chance if you're in the good pile, but not the great pile, or is that a discard?
There is no way to know which pile you are in unless you get an interview. So what they will do is say, sorry, we didn't get, but we moved on with other applicants, you know, thank you for applying, if you didn't get your interview. But you won't know if you were like, at what point were you discarded or how close were you to getting it. Even if you ask somebody who is on the committee, they can't tell you. Yeah.
Do you know if that means you get discarded outright for not being in the top batch? Or is that, yeah,
What do you mean discarded outright? Like,
if you get put not in the great pile, like, are you just lower priority, but you can eventually get through the job if they go through all the other applicants, or do they only consider like, you know, people who are top of the line?
pretty much you're out of the running unless you get a second interview. Yeah, because like out of the people they chose, they still have 10, right? So yeah, I haven't heard of anyone ever coming back from not getting a first interview. It means keep it moving,
Oh, okay,
try
so
again.
like being in that pile means literally that is if you get.
Yeah. So like if you're in the excellent pile, then you'll get an interview and you can move forward to the next step. But if you don't get an interview, that's it. Yeah. And honestly, don't let it bother you if you don't get interviews at first. A lot of places will not consider interviewing you if you haven't taught in the community college. Like I applied to teach, I applied for a full-time position without having taught yet. I applied to a bunch and I didn't get first interviews. And yeah.
Among these 1,600 applicants for community college, how many of them you think that they have PhD degree?
Few. It's not to say that like only PhD candidates will be in the top 10, but it does help. Yeah.
And do they really read teaching statement or cover letter? And
They do.
see that someone is writing is, I don't know, I feel that I'm not writing perfectly. Can it really adversely affect the?
I think so, yeah. So if you need help with writing, I really recommend going down to the Career Center and having them help you with your application materials. I had some really great help from, what was her name back in the day? Vanessa something?
Lee. Yeah,
Vanessa, is she still here?
Yeah, she's a student.
Go talk to Vanessa Lee, she rules, and she helped me a lot with my applications. I also am not the strongest writer, so, and especially like if English is your second language, you don't want that to hold you back, so, but yeah, they do want a well-written statement, yeah. But yeah, there are things you can do for that. You have a lot of time to put together your written materials. For things like your teaching demo, you only have 24 hours, but you know, that's where you show who you are, you know, that's where you put your own spin on things. Okay, so that's the structure of the first round interview. Do you guys want some tips? Not to toot my own horn, I think I interview well. So these are things that I think are important. So I think the biggest pitfall that I hear from people who are kind of struggling with getting past the first interview is sort of a misconception. Like as students, you guys are used to trying to demonstrate your knowledge, right? So if somebody says, give a 10-minute lecture on the conservation of energy, they don't want to see that you understand the conservation of energy. They know because they saw your CV and they cleared you to go to the next round. What they want to see is how do you teach that, right? They want to see your personality. They want to see what teaching strategies you employ in that 10 minutes. So they don't want you to literally explain conservation of energy, right? So that I think that's a really big pitfall that I've also heard from people on hiring committees. They're just like, yeah, this person is just explaining it to us, and that's not what you're doing.
So does that mean that like like, you're treating your interview panel as students, so you can ask them questions and do like an interactive thing live.
Yes, yes. So they want to see, how do you teach this to your students, not can you explain it? Right? So it's not a test. It's a little snippet of what you're like in the classroom, right? So what I do sometimes, because it's really easy to forget to do things so I do this in my actual teaching too, but I like to hand out like a little scaffolded exercise and have them play along. So what will happen is, like, your committee will role play with you and they'll be the students. They may ask questions, they may not. So in my interview at Mount Sac, they were actually like interrupting me to ask questions as if they were students. For a hiring committee at a different college, the person who was on the hiring committee told me they weren't allowed to say anything. And so even if the interviewer or the interviewee was like, what do you guys think about this? As the teacher, they weren't allowed to answer, which is weird. So you might be you might, yeah, so.
How do you do it? Awkward silence.
Well, as a teacher, you will learn how to deal with awkward silence. Yeah, so yeah, the basic thing is, in this interview, they want to see how you teach, not do you understand it. They already know. They want to see your personality. Make eye contact. I've heard of people who are like wonderful and qualified, their CV is perfect. They get to this interview and the committee is excited to interview them, and they're just like mumbling up there, not a single eye contact the whole time, and they don't move on to the second interview, right? So bring your charisma, bring your personality, make eye contact with every single person in the room. Ask them questions even if they might not answer. If they don't answer, keep it moving, you know? During your interview, it's very easy to forget to bring something up, and it can be catastrophic if you forget, because even if the people interviewing you, even if they know you, even if it's your mom, they can't use anything they know about you outside of the interview process or outside of your application materials and what you say in the interview. They are not allowed to use any of that information. So even if you already work at that college and they know how you teach and they know that you do all of these extra things, if you don't mention that in your interview, it's like it doesn't exist, right? So write down things that you want them to consider and make sure you bring it up at some place during the interview, right? Practice. This is one place where ChatGPT is really nice. You can be like, give me common interview questions for a faculty position and role play it with ChatGPT. You can also write down what you would answer and ask it to workshop that answer with you. It actually does a really good job with that. I caution people about ChatGPT, but that's one really good use of it. Make sure you read things like the educational plan and equity statement of the campus, because if you reference things that stand out to you, it shows you did your homework, you care about that campus specifically. Make sure you say things about, like, specifically at this campus, I noticed, oh, you have a planetarium, or your planetarium needs repair or something like that. Or like, you might ask them like, oh, what kind of telescopes do you have for instructional purposes and things like that, and then say things that you could do with those telescopes, that kind of stuff. What types of field trips do you typically take and things like that, if that's something that the campus does. So, yeah. Questions? I've done a lot of these first round interviews.
Let me ask my question. This is like so when's the application deadline? Is it already late? Am I going to be homeless? Yeah.
Okay. Well, like, what is the cycle, the hiring cycle? Oh, great. I should have put this at the beginning of the last slide, but the hiring cycle is kind of like, job calls come out from kind of January-ish through, like, the later ones might come out early March, maybe mid-March. So that's when all of the job calls will start, right? Often they will be due by April. And so that's like you get your application materials in. Then like right now is kind of when everyone's doing their interviews. So yeah, like March to May is kind of interview season. And then usually you find out, then you'll get a second interview, maybe end of the spring semester. And then in the summer, you find out if you're hired for fall. Rinse and repeat every year.
But that's only for full time. Adjuncts all are rolling.
Yes.
You apply for an adjunct.
Yeah.
when the semester starts.
You can apply anytime for an adjunct. You can and you can start anytime as an adjunct.
For adjunct,
Yeah.
I think they are not too much formal, right? I think they put in websites, or I should call them.
Not always. So
Yeah.
for an adjunct position, you can look around here. These are full and part-time positions will be listed on these websites. Sometimes you have to go directly to the district website or cold call the department. If you're worried about this coming fall, I know for a fact that RCC is hiring for certain classes
Okay.
and that people are kind of lining up to do it. So if you want one of those classes, they're not spoken for yet, but you should move quick. And I can help you get in there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to be homeless.
You won't be homeless. No, it's quite easy to get adjunct positions. Actually, after I left my Mount Sac position, I applied to a lot of places. Like I went, I applied for full-time, I applied for adjuncts, and I applied to like lots of them. It sounds like I was panicking. I was really just like, oh, let's just see what bites, and I'll just take the best ones. And I applied to something like maybe 18 of them. And this isn't too hard to do. You just kind of send your application in. And I heard back from too many of them. Like I was turning them down. So yeah. I think I applied to places in NorCal as well, being like, I won't relocate, but I'll teach online if you want. And that doesn't go over well. They want you to teach in person at least a little bit. So, but I heard back from like almost every local college that I applied to. And I think that if I didn't hear back, it was really just they weren't looking for someone. So, yeah. No, you'll be fine. As long as you're okay with adjuncting, you'll be fine. The adjunct positions are very easy to get. And many people will work more than one. My record is 3. I know some people who work 4 different campuses at a time. That's too many to me, but yeah. Like right now I'm working at 2.
Can you talk about juggling, working at different campuses at the same time? How that?
Yes, I can. So, okay. If you are full-time, they really want you to just be full-time at that campus. And often the scheduling will work out so that you can't really fit another campus into your schedule unless you take online classes. I have a lot of online classes, so it's easy for me to kind of slip a few more in there. It's not encouraged. You're not supposed to do it. If you have a full-time position. But yeah, but say you only have adjunct positions, the campuses that hire, or the people that hire you expect you to have more than one job if you're an adjunct. And so they will schedule you, they'll schedule you accordingly. So like if you're an adjunct at RCC, you'll get Tuesday, Thursday classes, and then you could go to MSJC or something on Monday, Wednesday. So they always make the schedule with that in mind. So yeah, adjuncting is kind of designed for you to work at more than one campus.
And do like within a single district or like neighboring districts, are there like methods like you get like priority if you already are working in that one district for other jobs in that same district, but at a campus?
Oh, great question. Okay, so remember how So there are 73 districts, right? And if you are, and so one district might have multiple campuses. And if you are an adjunct, you have kind of an upper limit to how much you can teach, up to 3 classes. That's for the whole district. So if I'm teaching 2 classes at RCC, I could teach 1 class at Moreno Valley, and that's it. Yeah, so, but if you move to if you have jobs at different districts, you can teach however many you want, and they can't like do anything about it, so. Yeah, so I have taught, at the same time I was teaching, at RCC, MSJC, and, Mount Sac for a little while when I was adjuncting. And then I got a full-time at Mount Sac and I just did that for a minute. And then now I'm full-time at Santa Ana and adjuncting at RCC. And when you do that, you can make pretty good money. So, yeah. Great question. All of you.
I have heard from faculty in another district, not RCCD. They've seen the enrollments is going down because of aging population and other things. And so it would be difficult to put on more full-time faculty positions. It's hard to justify that. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, the full-time positions are kind of hard to come by. They're valuable. So, and that's why they're so competitive, right? So, and so your point is that there'll probably be fewer in the future.
Yeah,
Because
so basically the college I talked to, they've had a hiring freeze because enrollment just keeps dropping year by year.
Mhm. I think that's true across the board. Like, for all types of schools, right? But I would say that community colleges are not as affected by that kind of thing because, you know, a lot of the dropping enrollment is that college is expensive and the economy is bad. It costs like $150 to take a class at a community college. And, of course, like UCs are seeing a lot of funding freezes, because of federal funding. Community colleges, at least in California, are less dependent on federal funds and more on state funds. So while we are affected by this kind of thing, I think it's to a much lesser extent than the UCs are. So yes, there's probably some declining numbers. Actually, this past fall, RCC saw like a really big uptick in numbers. And we were all kind of getting together and talking about why do we think that is. And we think that it's partially because people think people are afraid of ICE coming through and deporting people. And they think, oh, if I'm going to college, then I can show that I'm, you know, like I've got my stuff together and I should stay, you know. So we actually saw an uptick in enrollment in response to current events. So
I think this happened in 2008 as well. The recession actually caused an uptick in community college enrollment because also people, when they lose their jobs, they're more likely to go back to school to learn more skills.
exactly, yeah. So
colleges are in this weird.
Yes, that's another thing to put on the why teach at a community college. It was like times are tough right now. Times were tough when I was looking for a job and the community college was there. And that's true for people kind of at all levels looking to join the community college. So yeah, I haven't heard too much panic about lower enrollment in my circles, honestly. But everybody I know looking for UC jobs are like freaking out right now. So I see some nods.
How many full-time positions in like physics and astronomy do you see like pop up every year?
I guess I'm kind of heavily filtering for area. Like I'm not really excited to leave this area, so I haven't been looking around, but I would say, let's see, last year when I was looking, I saw, I want to say like, a dozen, maybe up to like 15, 16 positions statewide at the job fair I was at. just in this area this year, I heard of, like, within kind of normal driving distance from Riverside, I heard of maybe 2 or 3. Yeah, but then like greater Southern California, there's many more. Honestly, you guys, as long as you teach for a little while, you'll be top of the stack, I promise.
Up to the wild.
For me, it was 2 years. 2 years of adjuncting, and then I was in a really good position for a full-time. Yeah.
So this TA experience, how much does it help? For example, I was TA for 27 quarters.
So
Does it help?
it does help. It does help because you're getting practice teaching. It doesn't count towards your starting salary, because like when they count up your starting salary, they look at how many courses are you instructor of record, and that counts towards your like overall experience. So instructor of record courses are obviously more valuable, but if you're in the classroom, that's what they want to see. So to this day, I still put my TA experience on my CV, even though I have 5 years of community college teaching. I have an additional 7 years of TA, so. Yeah.
What I've heard, the TA experience is good because it's for your own confidence and your own teaching practices and developing your teaching philosophy, but like almost every interview I've gone to, they're like, well, but what are you instructor of record on? Like, that's what they.
Yes.
Count. But it's, yeah, so it's like, it's mental points.
Yeah, and it really does help you build out your skills though. And those skills will show when you do your interview. So, but yeah, technically TAing doesn't really count.
But they do like the teaching certificate program.
They do.
A couple people specifically like find it in my CV and say that they really like that.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, we were on first round interview. And then we finished that. But did you guys have any more questions about the first interview? Okay, if you do all these things, you're gonna get a second interview. It'll happen. So, second interview, that's usually like their top 3. And they really have 3 because they have one person they want to hire and they have kind of 2 backup in case the first person doesn't want it. So, you, in your final interview, you will meet different people. So, be prepared to talk to any of these high up admin, like the college president, VP of academic affairs. For me, in my final round at Mount SAC, I talked to the dean of instruction, the dean of the department I was going to be teaching in, and the chair of the department. So there's only 3 people in this interview. So yeah, the chair of the department might also be that subject matter expert. They might be the same person. This interview is a lot more like informal. Basically, they want to meet you and make sure you're not insane. Like, honestly, if you made it to the final round interview, just show up, be yourself, take a few deep breaths, and I don't know, don't say anything insane, and you're gonna do good. Because they kind of already know who they want to offer the job to, and they just need to say, oh, so the people in your original committee know who they want to hire, and they just want to introduce you to the college president. And as long as the college president doesn't hate you, you will get offered that job. So yeah. In this interview, they so this is another place to keep a list of things that you want to highlight about yourself, right? Because again, these people don't know you. They didn't see your first interview. They just know that you're being recommended. And so if there's something you want them to know, you have to repeat it here. And also, if there's something you didn't bring up in your first interview, oops, but you still made it, good job, bring it up now. Because that, if they want to give it to somebody else and then you say this like amazing thing, that might bump the other person down, right? So here's something that like I didn't do in my final round interview, but as soon as I left the room, I was like, man, but now you guys know, you can learn from me. at the end of the interview, they ask you if you have any questions. And so, of course, ask questions about the institution. That's what I did. But also, if just they don't know what to ask you to, like, they won't specifically ask you the thing that you are the proudest of. Like, that's not going to be one of the questions. This is the part where you get to steer the conversation the way you want. So if you are really proud of something that you think really sets you apart, bring it up. This is your chance. So yeah, and it's also like the end of the interview, so it's the thing that people will remember. So do that. Anyway, that's my advice.
I don't know if talk about it later, but how common is it to get like spousal hires at that's a full-time position, or if you have like a spouse at a bigger institute, use that and doesn't have a spouse here and put that like.
I haven't really heard of this, but I do know that people will kind of bring their spouses along. So like one of my colleagues, he was actually gonna come to this talk, but then he bailed on me. One of my colleagues at RCC, he moved here from North Dakota and his wife came to, obviously, and she works as an administrator and he works as a faculty member. So that does happen, and I'm not sure if it's like explicitly a spousal hire, but there's usually some place that you can kind of bring your partner in as well.
So I've heard more about how this goes, and usually there's a combination of both people applying to separate jobs, or it's like in the negotiation side, and some institutions are more open to it than others. In particular, institutions that are like in the middle of nowhere, who have trouble attracting people to them, they're more likely to do a spousal hire, because it's a very good guardianship for both parties. But it very much depends on the institution. But I believe UCR, for example, does do spousal hires.
Yeah, I understand that, like, for university do it, I was just curious, yeah, it's all the place.
I haven't seen a lot of it, but also I don't have a spouse, so I can't say. So, and I've also only applied to jobs where I wouldn't have to move because I'm comfy here. So I would move for a job, but I haven't found it to be necessary yet. So yeah.
But they will gauge during your interview, like not officially. It comes
Because
up,
they
they try and get you to self-admit whether you have a spouse who's interested in that kind of thing, because they need to know when they're presenting the package to the dean or whatever. You address that how you want to address it. It is kind of weird.
I'll ask, so I have homework and I'll send some updates around. I will ask my circle about sponsoring visas and spousal hires. And see like what the official stance is, because my initial instinct is to not bring up spouses at all during the interview, because it's something that they might discriminate one way or another about. So, and from what I understand, each job is just that job. Yeah. But hopefully maybe I have something better to come back with after I ask, so, yeah. What else did I have to say? Oh, I don't know, I think that's all I had prepared, but I wanted, like, obviously I know some stuff, so if you guys wanna ask me things.
When, for the classes that you teach, like here at UCR, we have some like pretty creative, like very like low level, lower division classes.
Uh-huh.
Like, give astronomy, for example.
I know, so cool.
What are you just teaching, like intro to astronomy, intro to biology, intro to chemistry? Those, is it just like very kind of generic classes?
Yeah,
then-
typically.
If you do teach more like custom classes, when do you actually get to propose those?
Great question. So yes, you typically are just teaching like entry level classes, really generic classes, because so those are the ones that are already, you know, made. There is a process you can go through. You can get involved with curriculum to propose new classes. And goes through a process. It takes about 2 years to go through the full class, the full process to get your class on the schedule. But for example, at Mount SAC, they have all of these different specialized astronomy classes, where there's like astrophotography because they have a 16-inch telescope on the roof of their building. They have what do you call planetarium show development as a class. So you can make your own classes and offer them kind of in addition to the normal curriculum. But for the most part, especially as you're starting out, you would be just teaching kind of the normal classes. And also like if there are kind of niche classes that students don't need for their degree, typically there's already a faculty member there who made that class and wants to teach it. So as a new person coming in, you might not get to do it. But you can, as you like kind of build your experience, you can make your own class and offer it. That's something that I really want to do, and I still haven't gotten around to it yet, but maybe if I stayed at Mount SAC, I would have done it by now, but I don't know.
So like you would PA the classes before you taught them for the community college, right? So like, was that helpful in filling out a syllabus, or did you still feel like, oh, I have to fill out a syllabus and track all of this? Is that like a hard transition with you?
TAing to teaching your full class, not so bad if if you've already TA'd that class. If you're starting from scratch, honestly, if you get hired to teach and you say you sign up for a class that you haven't taught before, often your colleagues will kind of step in and help you develop the class. In my experience, people have been very open to sharing their materials. I have full on like given other instructors just like undivided access to my Canvas. And I'm just like, copy whatever you want into your course. What's mine is yours. So there's tons of support for getting started with a course, even if you haven't taught it before. In fact, when I started teaching 2A at RCC, the person who hired me was like, let's teach this class together and I'll just send you all my quizzes as the semester goes on. It's great.
Awesome.
Yeah. No, I like a lot of times if it's your first time teaching the class, people will just like straight up send you all of their materials. I wouldn't expect that every time, but it happens. It's quite common.
Those resources that she lists on that slide at UCR, a lot of them have like syllabus, like create a syllabus workshops, like including the teaching certificate program. You make a syllabus as part of your teaching portfolio. Highly recommend.
Yes.
How much do the standards change for different classes in districts? Are there different standards for those classes?
No, and there's actually a the state is working on standardizing the class numbers. So like they're kind of renaming all of the classes so that there's they call this common course numbering. So like if you take mechanics at one school, it's the same thing as mechanics at another school, and they make sure they teach the same things and they transfer the same to the CSUs and UCs. Yeah, and so it's a big undertaking. In theory, it's already being done, but now they're even more standardizing it. And so different classes are at different phases of this change, but the short answer is yes.
That you really like the culture and environment of the Chinese college. Can you elaborate on that? How do you still compare to UCR?
Oh, okay. Wait,
Are
there faculty in here? There's no faculty, right? They're all gone. Okay. Oh my God. It's so much better, you guys. It's so much better. Oh, like a weight leaves you. It's incredible. People aren't like, people have this kind of collaborative air to them. Like the overall idea is like we're trying to teach these students, let's get it done, you know. It's not competitive because everybody there is just chilling. They care about teaching their students, and that's what they come in to do. And
students.
Yeah, no, it's very, very student focused. And like all you do is teach, so all you think about is your students and you even help each other's students out, right? So it's very collaborative. Of course, there's still drama, like there's gonna be drama anywhere, but it's not. And then I don't know, there's something about egos too, like there's a community college is a very unpretentious environment. So people don't tend to have a huge ego about like, oh, I'm like the big shot. It still happens a little bit, but like, I don't know, I'm a community college teacher. I don't like nobody knows who I am, right? So I'm not gonna have a big ego as I go through things. So and I feel like that's kind of general the vibe. So that's something I've really liked.
But how do you know that you have done a good job? And what kind of your evaluation that you're doing for?
Oh, sorry, could you say your question again? Like, how do I know if I'm doing a good job?
Yeah. From what kind of reaction, or do you have like a regular evaluation?
Yes.
That will be filled out by students, and then do you kind of like but so does it matter that you did a good job or bad job on a
Yes, it does. Okay, so great question. Yes, you are evaluated. Usually the first semester you teach, you'll have a subject matter expert in your field come into your classroom once or twice a semester, and they'll just for this first semester usually, and then they go on a cycle after that, maybe every 3 years. So great question. If you're an adjunct starting out, you will get evaluated on your first go around. And then that will kind of determine whether they offer you another class in the next semester. I have seen people do really poorly on their evaluations and then not get offered a class the next semester. Student evaluations also matter. So if too many students complain, you might not be invited back to teach again the next semester. That's rare though. Usually it's just a formality to make sure that you are, I don't know, that you show up to your physics class and you're not teaching basket weaving, Oh, bye, thank you for coming to the Zoom. Anyway, yeah, so yeah, there are evaluations, especially in the tenure track, you're gonna get every single class is gonna get evaluated every year. So the tenure track is very rigorous, and you'll cross that when you get there. But
After tenure,
what's that?
is that after tenure too?
I think you still get evaluated after tenure, but it's because I see people going into one of my colleagues' classrooms with a clipboard, and I'm just like, I keep forgetting to ask if he's being evaluated, but
Do they just sit in the back and like?
yeah, they just sit in the back with a clipboard, evaluate you. There's usually just like I've done evaluations, and there's just kind of like a rubric that you sort of grade their teaching according to. And really, they just want to see, are you teaching the class according to the course outline? Like, are you teaching the stuff you're supposed to teach? Is it at the correct level? Are you not throwing chairs at students? And like, yeah, like, are you doing different like types of teaching, right? Like, or are you just standing upstairs, up front lecturing the whole time, So they'll like describe your teaching and give recommendations if they think it's necessary. In my experience, the teaching evaluation part isn't so bad. Because you guys know how to teach. Oh, yeah, it depends completely on where you're at. When I was at Mount SAC, the teaching evaluations were really harsh. And I felt like they just didn't like how I taught, and I didn't really vibe with how they wanted me to teach, which is part of why I didn't continue there. And it's okay to, go through all of this, get to your final interview, get work for 2 years as a full-time person there and decide it's not for you. Because ultimately it's your career. And if your tenure committee wants you to grow in a direction that you don't want to grow, it's up to you, do you want to do all that again, though? And I decided yes, but that looks different for everyone. Yeah.
So you mentioned that work environment and you just kind of when you prepare for courses,
Mhm.
like you have that kind of environment that ask around that are you guys are discussing specific physics problems, or are you guys just try to figure out how you teach the stuff? I mean, for example, for computational energy, that you may like teach that in different perspectives, right? Did you guys discuss how you present the conservation of energy to the students?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
with the colleagues or
Yeah, we talk, you mean like, do we as colleagues talk amongst ourselves about like what we do in the classroom?
yeah.
All the time,
All the
all the
time.
time. We give each other, like, we'll describe what we do, we'll ask for advice, we'll give advice. It's very collaborative. And one of my favorite things about teaching is that I get to try different stuff every semester. And, don't be afraid to try things in the classroom. Like, worst case scenario, your students hate it and you do too. And you're just like, okay, I won't do that to you again. It's fine.
Are there departments in community college, like Department of Physics, Department of
Oh, yeah.
Mathematics?
Yeah. There's different departments, just like there are here. Yeah. And so, for example, at RCC, there's a department of, I want to say there's maybe 6 adjuncts and 4 full-time people in the physics astronomy department. It's actually the physical sciences department, so it's shared with geology as well. So you would be working with me too, if you come.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I was just gonna ask, like, can you work interdepartment, like, if I teach like an astronomy class and I teach a geology class?
Oh, yeah, you could. So in RCC, that would be easy because astronomy and geology are in the same department. Same as Mount SAC, it's Earth Sciences and Astronomy department, so that would be all the same department. But if you want to teach in different departments, that's also allowed. For example, at Mount SAC, physics is a separate department from astronomy, but so you would interview separately for those 2 positions because you're hired as a professor of astronomy and earth sciences or a professor of physics, right? So you would, so this is kind of funny. At Mount SAC, I interviewed and got the position for astronomy professor, and I interviewed and did not get the job for physics professor because I got one of their questions wrong. I was just rusty. When I look back, I was just like, oh man, that was wrong. They asked me really hard questions in that interview, but yeah.
So regarding the adjunct position, you said that these people cannot teach more than 3 courses in one district, right?
That's right.
So imagine that, so is it in one single department? Let's say that you have 3 courses in physics department, can you take another 2 courses in mathematics department, like, or engineering department, like teaching engineering mathematics?
Great question. It's three maximum, even if you have 2 different jobs. So yeah, like the person I know who taught astronomy and physics, 2 different departments at Mount SAC, he could only do like 1 physics class and 2 astronomy. Yeah, good question. But there are so many districts. Like even just driving distance from here, I can think of 4 or 5. So yeah, you'll be okay.
So community college is teaching focused, but are you or your colleagues also doing kind of research?
Not even a little bit. No.
Is there any time to do research?
Yeah, you could do research. It's just like not in your capacity as a professor at the college. Like if you actually I know a few people at RCC who also did research. There was he's like semi-retired now, but he actually did research here. And he would do like summer research here at UCR and teach full-time at RCC. So people do research, but it's not in any way, shape, or form part of the job description. So it would just be a totally separate thing that you do. And especially if you're adjuncting, there's plenty of time to do research. So you could do like part-time research here and adjunct. I don't know if the contract allows, but I know that some people do. So
So you can do an adjunct as soon as you have your master's degree, so you can do it while you're a PhD student.
yes.
I also did it while I was a postdoc, but there are permissions that you need, but mostly just your advisor.
Mhm.
And nobody else cares.
Yeah. And I know of some people who just ask for forgiveness instead of permission. So I should say though that like the people who did that while they were studying as students didn't do super well with their research, but that also ended up not ultimately being their goal to do super well with their research. So it's, up to you.
So other than just teaching and maybe workshops, what are other stuff that people do to get students involved in whatever they want students to be involved? Is that the goal, to get students involved in other stuff than classes, or not?
Sometimes it is. Honestly, the goal for like other stuff, like outreach stuff, is mainly to increase enrollment in your classes. So with astronomy, this is really easy to do. You set up a telescope out in like a high traffic area and everyone's like, what are you doing? Right? So you like take a telescope out, project a picture of the sun, and you're gonna get like 5% more students enrolled in your class next semester. I guarantee it. So that's kind of the goal of outreach things, is to increase enrollment and bring kind of general population people, like not necessarily students, into the college.
But like when you do your service or your committees, like what kind of committees do you have on your service?
Oh, okay. So service to the college is kind of a blanket statement for saying things like, oh, I am the representative for my department in the academic senate, and so I vote on behalf of my department on Senate matters. Or I serve on hiring committees, or they have name it, they have a committee for it. It's like the committee for making sure all the flyers on campus that are posted are nice, and like all kinds of committee work, many different things. What else is institutional services? Oh, putting out like hosting your own what do you call hosting your own like professional development workshop, for example, would be a good one. Like I don't know, teaching community college professors Python for using like for data visualization in their class. You could put on a workshop for that, and that's institutional service. So stuff like that. Oh, sorry.
What does student membership look like outside the classroom?
For me, it's looking up ways that they can get involved in research, and kind of like helping them through their path to transfer. Like helping them transfer is literally part of my job, but like helping them choose their college and being there for them when they want to ask a question about transferring is something that I consider mentorship. Just like writing out a path of like, these are the tests you need to take. Like I didn't know that there was a GRE. I had a mentor tell me. So being that person, right? I keep a little document of different research opportunities that they could apply to and write them letters. That kind of mentorship.
Are these students that signed to you as like an advisor role, or are these students that just you've taken a class with them, or are they taking a class with you and they liked you and have sought other opportunities with you?
Yeah, they're the second one. They're students in my classroom who trust me to ask about it. So I will always start off a class being like, I started in community college myself. And then I did all of these things in my career. And the one thing they really like to hear about is when I worked at NASA. So they're like, oh, wait, you can start in the community college and you can get a job at NASA. How did you do that? And so I tell them, and I try to open up the same opportunities that I had for them. But yeah, the big part is writing them letters. And sometimes I'll set aside just a little bit of class time to be like, here's how you apply to something. Here's how you ask for a letter of recommendation. And then I'll have them practice on me, like, write me an email if you want me to recommend you to this thing that I'm talking about, this like Mac REU, for example. I just sent a bunch of students over for that. So I told them about Mac REU. I said, okay, if you want me to write you a letter, send me an email with this, and I will write you a letter. And then I respond to their email with notes on their email, how to make it better, that kind of thing.
Do you need to prepare for a teaching portfolio?
Oh, you'll have to do that for your first year of your tenure track. That's actually part of your part of the package that you submit as part of your tenure. So yeah, you'll you don't,
Not for
yeah.
applying the, for example, the jobs.
Oh, I wish I didn't take down my website. I once heard back from somebody some feedback that having a website is nice. Yeah, so I had a website with all of my teaching portfolio on it, samples of like some of my materials and examples of things I was doing in the classroom. That's always nice to have, just build it out in Google Sites. It's a little bit extra. It was actually part of my teaching portfolio that I was doing as my tenure track in Mount SAC, was I put it together as a website, and everybody told me it was extra. It was like too much, but I did get feedback that it does help if someone's trying to vet you for an adjunct position. So can't hurt, but don't break your back to do it, is my answer.
And yeah, and how much time do you spend on grading?
Ooh. The official amount that you're supposed to spend is for each hour you spend in the classroom, you're supposed to spend something like an hour and a half total on prep and grading. That can vary depending on if you've already taught the class, then your prep is going to go down. It's hard to say how long do I spend on grading every day or every week, because what I really do is I let it pile up and then I grade it all in one weekend. But I would say, okay, I just spend less time than the recommended hour and a half per hour of class time, right? Because if I spend, 3 hours, okay, 3 hours of a week for one class, right, is how much time you spend in class. For 3 of those, that's 9 hours, right? And then 9 times 1.5 is help. 13.5 hours. So if half of that is grading, then 7 hours in a week is grading. I think that's actually what I end up doing. 7 hours in a week. Less. Okay, I'm gonna say 5. That's for a full-time job, though. Or no, that's for one adjunct.
So you know that at UCR,
They're just multiple choice.
it is a multiple choice, and even professor, they don't do anything, even they just give an order to, what's the name of them? Pearson. They designed the exam for them, students have to pay money to get the membership of Pearson.
Oh,
And
that's, yeah.
they take an exam, everything's automatic, they take zero, professor spends zero time on grading and even designing the exam.
That is definitely, you're right as a professor to design your class however you want. You have complete freedom. It's a little bit frowned upon to have absolutely no grading, absolutely no feedback, other than like just multiple choice. I'll do a multiple choice test here and there. It happens. So they do want you to actually put in some grading time. You don't have to do 5 hours a week. I just grade slowly, personally, because when I get into grading mode, I just like can't stop myself from leaving a lot of comments, but it takes me a lot to build up that energy to do it. Yeah, there's a little bit of a work function I have to overcome, right? But once I'm there, I can just kind of zero in and do the 5 hours or whatever. You don't have to actually do that. You could do multiple choice and like some kind of quick answers. I know some people who grade just for completion, like did they do it, did they not? Okay. I know some people, myself included, who do that. So it's fine. You know, you can spend as much time as you want on grading. Yeah. But it is expected that you should do some like actual feedback.
And also, do you use Canvas like the way that we?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I have yet to find a campus that does not use Canvas. So yeah, using Canvas is going to be a big one for you guys. You can keep them coming. I'm like, I do this professionally, so I'm here for as long as you guys have energy.
Wait, you said you could go through the table, like the base.
Oh yeah, okay. This is something that I wish somebody showed me. It's boring. It's like, what do you call, it's really technical, but it's something I wish someone showed me because it took me forever to figure out. So for you in Zoom, I might get a little louder because now I'm next to my computer. Okay. The thing to look up, if you want to know how much are you going to get paid, you want to look up, oh, here, I'll share my other screen with Zoom.
This is
Wait.
full-time, right?
Both full and part-time. Where am I here? Okay. Hopefully you guys are seeing my browser now. So what you want to look up is salary, salary schedule. And then whatever district you're looking up. I'm going to do RCCD because that's probably the one that you guys might start on. Okay, it makes no sense that they would call it a salary schedule when it doesn't tell you when, it tells you how much. I don't know why they picked that, but that's what it's called. Okay, so you go, it's usually on the HR website and you'll find something like this, salary schedules for this academic year. There's classified employees. That means staff, basically. That's not you. You want faculty employees. And then so there's faculty salary schedule. In this case, it means full-time. So I'll open this and we'll go through that. And then there's hourly. Adjuncts are hourly. So I'll start on adjunct because this one's the more confusing one. Okay, this is how much an adjunct makes. The groups, usually, so groups or columns is usually just like what degree do you have? They break it down here. But if you have a master's, it would be group 1. If you have a master's plus some extra experience, like a lot of coursework or research work, a few years of that, you might get placed in group 2. If you have a PhD, that's group 3, typically. Steps are time experience. So usually it's 1 step per year, you'll move up. So this is what I'm making at RCC. This is your hourly rate. It's kind of hard to calculate what an hourly rate translates to into like for how many classes you teach. The hourly rate doesn't really make sense. Sometimes if you dive really deep into the contract, you can find an actual calculation that will take you from $119.10 per hour to like what your paycheck would look like. It's hard to find, it's hard to figure out. So what I really use this for when what I use this for is basically comparing different districts of what I'll make. Again, rule of thumb for an adjunct is you will make about $1,000 per month per class that you teach, give or take. RCCD pays the best out of the local community colleges. The only ones that I can name off the top of my head that pay better are farther away. There's Irvine Valley and Cerritos also pay better. But they're really far. So yeah. So anyway, that's how to read the salary schedule for adjuncts. For full-time, it's a little bit easier and they look a little bit more the same for each different college. It's a table like this. Oh, they do you the courtesy of actually breaking down like what the degree is. So if you're graduating and you're going in with your doctorate, just always go to the far right. That's going to be the best paying one. These like masters plus 30, those are like class credits or hours or something like that, and they'll break it down here. So for most people in this room, there's going to be a master's degree plus some amount of learning, right? And then again, steps are, they move you up every year. So yeah. So you would probably start at step 1, or you would definitely start at step 1, unless you teach like a instructor of record course here, then you might be placed at step 2.
So like your adjunct years count in your full time?
Yes, so when you get hired as a full-time person, they will like HR will calculate how much, like what step and column to place you in. And so that's all up to HR, and they'll always have something in the contract or sometimes even on this page that will explain. Oh, yeah, see, here they explain how they calculate step advancement. But actually, so I know from experience that the step advancement or initial placement, right? So say you get hired, you already have some teaching experience. They will look at your prior teaching experience, and typically, what it will be is 1 step per 1 year that you taught full-time. If you taught part-time, that counts for a little bit less. I think it's like 1 step for every 2 years that you taught part-time at a different college. It's 1 step per year for each year you taught part-time at the same college. And then, of course, each district does it differently, but that's what I've seen. And so now, after teaching for 5 years, I typically get placed at the highest step that they will initially place people. So they have kind of a cutoff. Even if you've been teaching for 15 years, there's like, and then you start a new job, they'll only usually start you at step 6 is the highest. But now that I've been teaching for 5 years, they place me at step 5. So that's nice. And that experience follows you.
So we will be at the last column?
If you have a doctorate, yes, you'll be in the last column.
Because
Not so bad, right? Yeah. That's a good salary. And again, this is your base salary. This is what you get this is what you get for teaching 10. 10 months, right? So spring and fall. You can teach extra during spring and fall. So this is just for your 5 classes. You could take a 6th class if you want. And when that happens, so this is your base salary. If you take on extra, even if you're full-time, then you move to the hourly category. So if you get a full-time job at RCC, and they place you at step 3, that's that 120 I was talking about earlier, right? So every year, and then that's dispersed every month. So even though you're a 10-month employee, you get $10,000 every month, even in the summer. Then say, I don't know, you're a workaholic and you want to teach during the summer, or you want to teach extra classes, then on top of that, you also get this hourly rate, which is the same that you would make if you were an adjunct.
Let's think of time because the bank closes at 7.
Oh.
So that's so you're welcome to join us for you can like continue asking questions. We are going to the bank.
Yeah, let's go.
Next time the speaker. I think this is also our first in-person webinar. So yeah, this talk has been presented to you by Aurora, which is Astronomy Union for leading outreach and research activities. Our series of talks continues next Monday. We have a talk on dust beyond the local universe with the WST and alum by Acing, who again is our very own alumnus. And we request you to join us on Highlander link.
Yeah.
The QR code is there with Pfizer. And also,